I need you to lean in close right now, because what I'm about to tell you, I should have heard 50 years ago. I'm 95 years old. I've buried a wife. I've watched grandchildren grow taller than me. I've seen 7 presidents. And I have made more mistakes with money than most people will ever get the chance to make. Because I lived long enough to make all of them. But there is one mistake. One that keeps me awake some nights even now. One that I would undo before anything else if God gave me the chance. And it wasn't the bad investment in '87. It wasn't the business deal that went sideways in the '90s. It wasn't even the market crash I sat through without blinking. It was the moment I stopped trusting myself and started listening to my children. Now before you click away, before you think this old man has gone bitter or cold or ungrateful, I love my children. I love them with every tired bone in this body. But love and financial wisdom are 2 entirely different things. And for a long time I confused the 2. I let love make my money decisions. And that confusion cost me everything I had spent 40 years building. So if you are over 60, over 65, maybe even 70, and your children have started having opinions about what you should do with your money, sit with me a while. This story is for you. And if you're not subscribed to this channel yet, please do that right now. Hit that button, because the people who come here, they come for the truth that nobody else wants to say out loud. And today, I'm going to say a lot of it. I grew up with nothing. I mean that literally. My father worked a factory floor his whole life and retired with a pension that barely covered groceries. My mother sewed clothes for neighbors to make ends meet. There was no trust fund. There was no inheritance. There was no head start. When I was 22 years old, I went to work at a lumber company as a clerk. And I told myself right then and there, standing in that cold office in January with holes in my shoes, I told myself that nobody was ever going to have to take care of me. I was going to take care of myself. That was the promise I made. And I kept it. I saved. Lord, did I save? Decades of brown bag lunches, vacations we skipped, cars we drove until the floorboard rusted through. My wife, Ruth, God rest her, she never once complained. She understood the mission. We lived on 60% of what I made, and we invested the rest, not in anything flashy. Mutual funds, a little real estate, a rental property we bought in 1971 that we held until 2003. By the time I was 68 years old and finally retired, we had a nest egg that felt like a miracle when I thought about where I'd come from. It wasn't a fortune by rich people's standards, but it was enough, more than enough. It was freedom, and that's when my children started talking. My eldest, David, smart man, college educated, works in finance actually. He started coming around more in the years after Ruth passed. I don't think he meant any harm, I truly don't. But he started looking at my accounts the way a man looks at a car he wants to buy. He'd ask questions. Casual questions, you know. Dad, what are you doing with that money sitting in that account? Or, Dad, have you thought about helping me with the down payment on the bigger house? The kids need more space. Or, and this is the one that really got me. Dad, you can't take it with you. Now that phrase right there, you can't take it with you. I want to talk about that phrase, because I believe it is the single most dangerous sentence that has ever been spoken to a retired person. It sounds generous, doesn't it? It sounds like wisdom. It sounds like someone reminding you to enjoy life while you can. But what it really is, what it really means when a family member says it, is this. Stop protecting what you built. Stop being careful. Stop thinking about yourself. Give it to us. I'm not saying every child who says that phrase is greedy. I'm saying the phrase itself is a trap. Because the truth is, you might have to take it with you. You might need every single dollar of that money to survive the next 20 years. I'm 95. Do you understand what that means? I have been retired for 27 years. 27 years of withdrawals. 27 years of medical bills. 27 years of inflation. 27 years of life that I had to pay for out of that nest egg. And I was not prepared, even after everything I'd done right, for how expensive getting old truly is. By the time I was 80, I had given away or lent out. And I use the word lent very loosely, because almost none of it came back. Close to $400,000. To David, to my daughter Carol, to a grandson who needed to start a business, to another one who needed to get out of debt. $400,000. And every single time I said yes because they were my children, because they looked at me with those eyes, because I thought, what's the point of having it if I don't use it to help the people I love? I'll tell you what the point is. The point is that I needed it. Me. The man whose name was on those accounts. The man who was going to get older and sicker and more fragile and more dependent, not less. The point is that I gave away the very money that was supposed to protect me when I couldn't protect myself anymore. At 84, I had a serious health episode. I won't go into all the details, but I needed round-the-clock care for a period of time. I needed home aids. I needed medical equipment. I needed modifications made to my home. And I sat there, this man who had promised himself at 22 that nobody would ever have to take care of him. I sat there and I looked at my accounts and I felt sick. Not from the illness, from what I saw, or rather, what I didn't see anymore. The cushion was gone. The runway had gotten dangerously short. And where were my children? Well, they were living their lives. David had his bigger house. Carol had taken a trip to Europe with money I'd given her. The grandchildren had their businesses, their fresh starts, their debt-free lives. They were fine, comfortable, moving forward. And I was scared in a way I hadn't been since those January mornings as a young man with holes in my shoes. If you are watching this right now, and you are someone who worked hard, saved faithfully, and built something real for your retirement, I need you to hear what I'm about to say as if your life depends on it. Because at some point, it might. Your money is not a shared resource. Let me say that again, slower this time. Your retirement savings is not a family fund. It is a survival account. It is the thing that stands between you and complete dependency in your final years. And I don't care how much your child needs a new kitchen, or how urgent your grandchild's student loan feels, or how many times they remind you that you have more than you need. You do not know what you need. None of us do, because we don't know how long we'll live. We don't know what medical crisis is waiting around the corner. We don't know what inflation will do to our purchasing power in 15 years. We don't know. And because we don't know, we need every bit of that buffer we built. There is a concept I wish someone had explained to me in plain language when I was 65. It's called sequence of returns risk. It basically means this. If you start giving money away or spending it down too quickly early in retirement, you lose not just the money itself, but all the future growth that money would have earned. You're not just losing $1, you're losing $10. Because that dollar wasn't going to sit still. It was going to compound. It was going to work for you while you slept. And when you give it away, when you hand it to someone else, you're not just giving them the dollar. You're giving them all the future dollars that dollar would have become. And you're keeping the risk. You're keeping the healthcare risk. You're keeping the longevity risk. You're keeping the inflation risk. They get the dollar. You keep the danger. Nobody told me that. Not in those words. And nobody told my children either. They just saw a number in an account and thought, Dad has plenty. Dad will be fine. And I let them think it, because I didn't want to seem stingy. I didn't want to have those uncomfortable conversations. I didn't want my children to think their father didn't love them. But here is what love actually looks like between a retired parent and their adult children. It looks like boundaries. It looks like a parent who is clear and firm and unapologetic about protecting their financial security. It looks like a child who understands, really understands, that if their parent runs out of money, the burden doesn't disappear. It shifts. It shifts right back onto the children. The parent who gives everything away to help their kids isn't being generous in the long run. They're setting up a future crisis. For themselves and eventually for the very people they were trying to help. I want to tell you something that happened about 6 years ago when I was 89. David came to visit me. I was living in my home still, alone, stretching every dollar. And he sat across from me at the kitchen table and he said, Dad, are you doing okay? Financially, I mean. And I looked at my son, my successful, college-educated son who works in finance, and I said, No, David, not really. And I watched something change in his face. Not guilt, exactly. More like surprise. As if it had never occurred to him that the money would actually run out. As if he had never done the math. We sat there for a long time, he and I. And I told him everything, the full picture. And to his credit, to his real credit, he didn't get defensive. He got quiet. And then he said something I'll never forget. He said, "Dad, why didn't you ever say no to us?" And I said, "Son, that's the question I ask myself every single night. Say no. That's it. That's the whole lesson. 2 letters, 1 word. And I could not say it. Not to my children. Not when they looked at me with need in their eyes and called me Dad. And so I said yes, and yes, and yes again. Until the yeses ran out and there was nothing left to say yes with. Now I want to tell you something else because I don't want to leave you with only regret. I want to leave you with something useful, because there is still time. For most of you watching this, there is still time to make different choices than I made. The first thing you must do is get brutally honest about your own numbers. Not comfortable, not optimistic, honest. Sit down with a piece of paper or with a financial advisor who has no connection to your family and map out what you actually have, what you actually spend, and how many years you might realistically need that money to last. If you're 65 and healthy, plan for 30 years minimum. Yes, 30. I know that sounds extreme. I'm living it. Plan for 95. Plan for the long game, because the long game is the one that will break you if you're not ready for it. The second thing, and please hear this, is to understand that caring for yourself financially is not selfishness. It is the most responsible thing you can do for your family. A parent who maintains their financial independence is a gift to their children. Because the alternative is a parent who needs to be financially rescued. And that rescue costs children more, in money and in emotional weight, than whatever you might have given them along the way. When you protect your retirement, you are protecting your children from a future burden they cannot see coming. You're not being selfish. You're being the adult in the room. The third thing is this: change the conversation. When your child comes to you with a financial need, do not say yes or no immediately. Say, "Let me think about what this means for my long-term security," and then actually think about it. Talk to someone outside the family. Run the numbers. And if the answer is that you cannot safely afford to help, say so. Not with apology, not with guilt, just clearly and with love. I love you. I cannot do this right now because I need to protect my future. A child who loves you will understand. And a child who doesn't understand, well, that tells you something important too. Fourth, stop letting your children manage your money, make decisions about your investments, or pressure you into financial choices you haven't thought through yourself. I know it feels like they're being helpful. I know it feels like they just want to modernize you, streamline things, make it easier, but there is a reason your name is on those accounts and not theirs. Because it is your life, your retirement, your risk, your survival, and you are allowed, you are entitled, to make your own decisions about it for as long as your mind is sharp enough to make them, and your mind may be sharper than you think. I am 95 years old, and I am telling you this story. I know what I lost. I know exactly how it happened. I know what I should have done differently. The brain doesn't stop working just because the body slows down. And the moment you let someone else take the wheel of your financial life, even someone you love deeply, you have begun the process of losing control of everything that your entire working life was meant to give you. Fifth, and this is the last one, give yourself permission to put yourself first. Just once, maybe for the first time. You spent your whole career providing for others. You raised children who needed you. You were a spouse, a parent, a provider, a support system. You gave decades of your working life to other people's well-being. This season, this final, precious, irreplaceable season, is supposed to be yours. The money you saved is supposed to be for you. Not as a monument of selfishness, but as the final act of a person who honored the promise they made to themselves a long time ago. You said you would take care of yourself. Keep that promise. You have earned the right to keep it. I think about Ruth a lot. I think about what we could have done with that $400,000. The trips we talked about but never took. The comfortable years we could have had instead of the tight ones. I think about the anxiety I carried quietly for years while pretending everything was fine. I think about that 22-year-old kid standing in a cold office in January, and I want to reach back through time and tell him, it's going to work. You're going to build it. Just don't let it slip through your fingers in the last chapter. Hold on. You earned it. If you are watching this and you felt something while I talked, if something in your chest recognized what I was describing, please share this with someone who needs to hear it. A sibling, a friend, someone who is too generous for their own good, someone who has been saying yes when they should be saying no. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I am asking you personally, an old man asking you kindly, please subscribe to this channel, because there are more conversations like this one coming, honest ones. The kind we should be having around kitchen tables but usually don't. The kind that might save your retirement if you're still in time to save it. I'm 95 years old. I don't have many regrets. But the ones I have are sharp. And this one about money and children and the word no, this one I carry every day. So that maybe you don't have to.